new rules. They even had something called vessels of opportunity. That's where the fishermen, if you had a boat that you used to shrimp with, you now could help clean up oil. And they called it vessels of opportunity, which turns out to be very little opportunity for most fishermen. This particular disaster, at one time the Exxon Valdez was the worst environmental disaster we had ever seen with an oil spill, that tanker. The one that we have now is bigger, and so that's why it's important to say that there was more oil spilled in this disaster than the Exxon Valdez, which is, you know, everyone knew about the Exxon Valdez and how bad it was. And in fact, they're still overturning oil from the Exxon Valdez. And that claim was just settled maybe last year. They've been fighting all that time, over 20 years, for the claim to be settled. The BP oil spill will have profound effects: human health, ecological health, the fishers, shrimpers, oyster, and the food industry. And people forget about the support industries, the sports, fishermen, the bait and tackle, all of these other side industries that support fishing and tourism around fishing in Louisiana. All of these companies lose money and go out of business because of what is happening in the Gulf. And of course, our cultural heritage, you know, with fishing communities, they live off of what they catch. It's a part of their diet, it's a part of their culture, it's a part of their celebration. We have shrimp festivals, we have crab festivals, we have oyster festivals. All of this is connected to the Gulf. And if there are no crabs, there are no shrimp, we have nothing to celebrate, right? So it does, in fact, impact the culture as well. And this was a massive cleanup. You cannot believe how massive it was. The military was there. The Coast Guard was there working, trying to stop the oil from coming ashore. And the work was nonstop. They worked from morning until night. At night they had big lights out working, trying to contain it. And I like this because it looks like an anaconda or something, but it's really a boom. It looks like a hose, a big fat hose.
Just skip the slide.
Huh?
Go back one slide.
Okay.
There you go.
Yeah, that's the way it looks when they first put it down. And these booms were put up to stop the oil from coming on land. And then this is the way it looked when they picked it up. It looks like an anaconda to me. It's still a big snake. And this is what they did to it after it was oil soaked. They burned the boom after it was trapped. Very quickly, our center has a hazmat training program, hazardous waste worker training program. We've had it for 17 years with the grant from the National Institute of Environmental Health Sciences. And Dr. Bullard is a partner in that project, so he also has this program where we've been training young men and women in hazmat for 17 years. We were asked to train young men and women for the cleanup. We were also asked to provide them with cleanup workers. These cleanup workers have on tie-back suits as protective gear. There were unbelievable fights over whether or not you'd wear protective gear because BP wanted to say that the oil was not toxic. It was so difficult that all the people that we trained wore protective gear, but they also wanted to wear respirators because they complained about their noses burning, you know, the back of their throats burning, runny nose afterwards, all kinds of things. And they were told that if they brought their own respirator, they would be fired. And so BP was even controlling the cleanup to some extent and impacting the health of workers. Many of these are our workers, our active trained workers, and they sent us these pictures from the site. So it looks a little bit staged, maybe it was, I'm not sure, but this is the work that they were doing. And you can see here the abuse to workers because here they are in all of this goop without any protective gear on. So BP was also abusing workers, and they had a class that they set up. In other words, in order to work on a site, you had to go through a BP training class, which was unbelievable. Some of the Vietnamese workers sat in classes where English was spoken and they only spoke Vietnamese. Many of them went to 3, 4, 5 different classes and knew nothing. Our trained workers were required to go to a BP training class before they could continue training. They began teaching the classes because the BP people really did not know hazardous waste worker training. And they gave erroneous information. We wrote all of this up. Their training was just not sufficient and really was not appropriate for the job that people were being asked to perform. And this picture is interesting because the guy sent it back to us. When they finished, oftentimes on the beaches, the waste had to be taken away. So what's this oil waste booms or whatever in bags. And so the question is, where is this waste going? Well, if you can remember what we talked about in the very beginning, you know, like where hazardous waste facilities are, but that's also true for landfills. The majority of the landfills are in people of color communities. And so there were 4 states that were chosen for the waste: Mississippi, Alabama, Louisiana, and
Florida.
4 places. The Mississippi somehow managed to get off the list. So they managed to get off the list, and the landfill that was selected for them was a landfill in a middle-class white community. And somehow they magically were able to get off the list completely. That landfill was removed after protests. Louisiana really loves toxic waste. We ended up with 4 landfills in Louisiana, and our governor asked for it. We asked for it, that the waste come to us, that BP bring it to us. We have a very large one. We have one in Florida and one in Alabama. Or 2, was it 2 in Alabama? One in Alabama, which was extremely large. But the point that is most important is that all of these landfills were in African American communities. And in the Deep South, that's where the majority of the discrimination and the disproportionate exposure lies. So even after all of this happens, the waste is moved out, we get it. So our people are once again disproportionately exposed to toxins or the impacts of the BP oil spill. Environmental impacts, I showed you some of them already: marine life, wildlife, marshes, and coastline. This is a famous picture of the brown pelican, which is our state bird, completely covered in oil. And BP attempted to restrict photographing images like this. You know, I think it has to do with how upset people get when they see wildlife being destroyed. Sometimes they're more upset over wildlife than humans. And so certainly they didn't want the pictures of the wildlife, and they were restricting taking people's cameras if they were caught, not allowing them into the space where they could take these pictures, damaging coastal wetlands. You can see what's happening here with all of the oil. And this is an aerial view of the booms that they were laying up. And whenever I look at the booms, when you look deep into the marshes, the oil is already there, isn't it? So it's too little, too late. And there were massive economic impacts of the fishermen, the shrimpers, the oystermen, the food industry, support industries, and of course our cultural heritage. I like to show this because when I travel and talk, people seem not to know that they're black fishermen. They've been there a long time, we've been fishing a long time. And so my pictures are black fishermen. This is an oysterman, and the oysters have truly been destroyed. I just wanted you to see some of these pictures. Sorry. Okay. And then when you can't catch shrimp anymore, then I guess you catch boom, because the jobs that were left were shrimpers, you know, to deal with the boom. So instead of shrimp, they're dealing with, I call it the anaconda, the big booms, dragging them out of the water for them to go to landfills in African American communities. These are BP oil spill response statistics so that you can see that we were involved in training people for the cleanup. We conducted classes. We had 2 grants, one with the Department of Labor, the other with NIHS, and we did training for the cleanup. The total training is 115 cleanup workers for our project. And thank you.